All right, welcome to another episode of How It Works. And today we're going to be doing a deep dive into Querious, a product we first showed you last year. And last year we did a demo of this with founder and CEO Hilary Bowman. And Hilary's going to give us an update on what's new and do another in-depth dive on what's going on with Querious. So Hilary, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to do this again. We had a lot of fun when we did it last year. It was like about 9 months ago, but I know a lot has happened with you since then. So why don't you kind of give us a little bit of an update of what's going on?
Absolutely. Yes. So Curious has had a breakout year in 2025. We kicked off the year at the ABA Tech Show and won the Startup Alley pitch competition. So that was really exciting. And then we went on to be recognized in other organizations. We won a pitch competition through Hay Council. It's a fractional general counsel community. We also won the Startup Showcase at the Legal Tech Fund Summit last fall. And we were recently recognized as one of the finalists for Legal Week's Innovator of the Year. So we're really excited about the interest in what we're building and hope it continues.
That's really interesting. That's really exciting to see all that recognition. I mean, I remember the Startup Alley from last year, and there was so
Mhm.
much interest in what you were doing then, and it's great to see how that has continued to accelerate over the course of the year. What about with Querious itself, the platform? What's new? What's changed since last we talked?
Absolutely. So, if you recall last year when we had the bot join the conversation, it was flagging in real time for the attorney potential legal issues, questions, relevant legal content. And so we've continued to expand on that. So, one of the major changes that we made was to enhance that user experience, what the attorney sees in real time. We recognize that, as someone's having a conversation, it's difficult to also read in the moment dense amount of text. And so we really have worked with a UI UX designer. We've worked with our attorney users to come up with a better visual of how to represent these key prompts that support attorneys in the conversation. So that's been one of our key developments. We also have worked extensively on what happens after the conversation. So we produce a summary email, we produce a detailed set of notes. We also pull in some preliminary research as part of that. And so we've done a lot of work around, what are the credible publicly available sources that we should be pulling from in order to support the legal issues that are flagged during the conversation. And we're already starting to get deeper into our product roadmap where those issues are not only important to the attorney that's had the conversation, but those potential referrals to another attorney, maybe that has a subject matter expertise. That attorney may be within the attorney's firm, it may be outside. And so we're really thinking of how does this product connect lots of different attorneys in a way that creates a really seamless and valuable experience for the client.
We've jumped into what's new and a lot of the developments since last year, but it occurs to me we never actually talked about what you do, and not everybody
Yeah.
will have watched our video last year. So why don't you kind of give us a quick
Yeah.
summary of what Careers is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Curious is the first legal conversational intelligence platform. And so that means that we join major important legal conversations and we support the attorney in making the most of those conversations. So, specifically, we are flagging here's a legal issue that you should be considering, or here's a follow up question that you can ask. The value of these prompts is that we are helping the attorney brainstorm in real time what are potential legal issues, especially those that are outside of an attorney's practice area? Those can help surface a client's risks. It can also help surface new ways that an attorney can work with that client, so business opportunities. And with that feedback in real time, the attorney can deliver really high value legal services no matter how many meetings they have that day or no matter the circumstances that they're taking that conversation. So we're really excited to demonstrate some of that in this session. So that's what happens during the conversation. After the conversation, our goal is to reduce the administrative work of the attorney. So we have attorney users who say, I spend anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes kind of debriefing from a conversation, drafting my notes, getting organized. Well, with our product in the conversation, we can really remove that administrative burden. So we draft a summary email, we draft a detailed set of notes that including, recaps the legal issues, and we also draft a billing entry, which attorneys just love. So if they don't have to spend time, drafting a billing entry, you know, putting any mental thought into some of those administrative tasks, that frees up time that they can spend on higher value legal services. And so we really have seen this neat kind of flywheel effect where we're reducing the administrative burden of having client conversations and then freeing up time for attorneys to do the higher level thinking that they enjoy.
And you are an attorney, or maybe you're a recovering attorney now. But I mean, did the idea for this come out of your own practice?
Absolutely, yes. So I was a healthcare attorney for 12 years. I spent 6 of those years in large law firms. I was representing hospitals and health systems. After that, I was an in-house lawyer, including at IBM Watson Health. So there was a little bit of a tech background that I think definitely formed the formation of or the background for what we're building at Curious. But in those experiences, a few things kept popping up. So I would go into a conversation with a client and I would say, you know, we're planning on discussing this agreement or this policy. Well, inevitably, the conversation went in an unexpected direction, right? Something comes up in the conversation, and now there's an employment issue or there's a tax issue. And while I'm not prepared to give that advice, right, that wouldn't be responsible, what I started to search for is there a technology that can help me navigate those unexpected moments, right? That can help me at least ask one or two really good questions so that after the conversation, if I do consult a colleague or I do some follow up research, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm not starting from square one. And so this technology really came out of my own experience practicing law and realizing this pain point of, there's so much going on in an attorney client conversation. It's really rich with details and legal issues, but I don't have the right technology. I'm sitting there, typing to myself notes in a draft email. Like that's not a good system for practicing. And so that was, several years ago at this point, and I have found that, I think we are definitely solving that pain point.
All right, we're going to get to a demo in just a second. One other point of update that I wanted to
Yes.
raise is I know you've had several partnerships with bar associations and others over the last year. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you for asking about that. So we are really excited that we are partnered with the New York State Bar Association, the State Bar of Michigan, and the Alabama State Bar. They've all been wonderful organizations to work with. They're really thinking about how do they bring the right tools to their members to prepare them for the future of legal practice. And so we've been at those events. We've been talking to attorneys from those states and really are excited about where those relationships will lead us. Another really interesting collaboration that we announced recently is with the Wisconsin Lawyers Mutual Insurance Company. So this was a relationship that came about because they were looking for tools to offer to their policyholders, and we did a demo for them and they immediately saw the productivity gains of a product like ours and the risk management gains. And so I think this is a really exciting opportunity to really prove out all of the things that we have the value we've seen with our existing attorney users, but to do it at scale. And that's really exciting.
All right. Well, I guess as I understand it, I get to play the client again today for today's demo. You want to kind of set the stage here a little bit?
Absolutely. Okay. So I think the plan is that, Bob, yes, you will be a client that has reached out to my law firm and you are starting a charter fishing business in Massachusetts and you are looking for some guidance on setting up your company, possibly purchasing a boat for that fishing business and kind of getting your crew up and running. And so we'll use that as the hypothetical, and then I will share my screen and allow the viewers to see what's happening in real time during a conversation like this.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I'm all set to talk to my attorney.
Okay. All right. So I will send the product into the meeting and we'll go from there. All right. So I have sent it to the meeting. It should arrive momentarily. There it is. All right. So before we get into our hypothetical, I did want to quickly highlight that the bot is very transparent to everyone in the meeting. So Bob, even you can see it, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not
Yep.
I'm not hiding anything that I'm using
Right.
a technology behind the scenes. And that is by design. So, whether you're thinking about the rules of professional conduct, right, in law that require you to be transparent about the technology you're using with your client, that's the purpose for having something like this. And it's also the privacy laws now that exist. So, states are passing privacy laws that affect how individuals' information can be gathered, retained, and used. And so, while it seems like a lot of text to fit on a small screen here, the purpose of the language here is to quickly explain to everyone in the conversation, whether or not they're a user of Curious, we don't, how the product works. So the purpose is to create, a record of how it works, how we use your data, and if you're not comfortable, you don't consent to it being used in the conversation, that it can be removed or you can leave the meeting. And so that's actually the product of speaking to a lot of lawyers who are experts in this space. And this is an area that really differentiates us from other general purpose AI note takers.
All right. That's really important. And is it generally the practice that the lawyer will kind of point that out to whoever's on the call and walk them through it a little bit?
Absolutely. Yes. So we really support the attorneys. We know that this is a new technology, that this is a little bit different than some of the conversations that they've had with their clients in the past. And so that is another purpose of having the language right here, is that it kind of gives the attorney the talking points they need to describe it as well.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right. So let's get started. So why did you reach out to me today? It's so great to hear from you. Give me an update.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you could take the time to talk to me. So I've got this idea for a business. I want to start a charter fishing business. I live right by the ocean here in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and I really want to take advantage of my location. And I'm excited. I love fishing and I love boating, so I want to try and start a business. So I'm kind of thinking about maybe running fishing trips out of where I am and kind of try to think through from a business point of view how I do that. I'm thinking about maybe I should start an LLC, but I'm not quite sure what the right business structure is. And I'm also just concerned about issues like liability and some other things. And I should say, I'm also looking to do this. I'd love to get it up by Memorial Day weekend because I would love to be able to start doing it this summer.
That makes sense. Well, you've come to the right place. I completely understand your concerns and we will do our best to meet that timeline so that you can make the most of the summer season. So, a few clarifying questions. So, you mentioned you're going to form a business. It'll primarily be based in Massachusetts. Are you going to be the only owner of that, or will there be multiple owners of this business?
I think it'll be just me. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. And then what are you planning to contribute in terms of assets to the company to get started? And things, just to give you an example, it might be intellectual property, equipment, things like that.
Well, I have some of the equipment, but I'm going to have to buy a boat, and I have identified a boat that I'm kind of interested in. And I guess one of my questions also is, what's the best way to go about that? Do I do that on my own and give it to the company, or does the company buy it? But and then again, I have some of my own gear and other things that I'll be bringing into it.
Okay. All right. That's really helpful. Have you done anything in terms of naming the company? I'm just thinking intellectual property, the name, a trademark, anything like that. And it's fine if you haven't made it that far.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it. I was thinking maybe Captain Bob Sport Fishing.
That's a great name. I like that.
Okay, good.
All right. So we will look into that and seeing and research whether or not we can protect that. So more to come on that. So I will just pause here in the conversation. So Bob, you're seeing the output of this. I'm sharing my screen. And what I did ahead of time is preloaded a handful of questions that I knew that I wanted to cover with you. So imagine I've talked to lots of attorneys throughout this whole building process, and they'll say something like, I have a script, right? When I have a new client, I have a script that or a checklist, whether it's written down, maybe it's in my head, of things that I always want to cover. And so what we've done is incorporated that concept into the technology. So I had a handful of questions here that were planned ahead of time. And as we had our conversation, they auto answer. So it listens for the answers to these questions. And when it thinks it has an issue, response to a question, it turns a light blue or purple. And then when it feels that it has a pretty solid answer, it turns a darker purple. So we've addressed 3 of the 6 questions that I planned ahead of time, and there's a partial answer. It just turned to a darker blue here as we've been reviewing them. So I think it did a pretty decent job of covering what we've mentioned so far.
Yeah, just to be clear, the client, I as the client am not seeing this. We're seeing it for purposes of this demo, but
Exactly.
you the lawyer are seeing this. I the client am not
Yeah.
seeing this.
Yes, exactly. It's intended to support the attorney so they can stay organized, but then also just have a natural conversation, right? I'm not furiously typing notes off to the
Right.
side or looking away. I can really actually have a natural conversation with the benefit of technology. And I think that's sometimes a misconception about adopting AI. So,
Yeah, it can be
yeah.
really distracting. I would imagine
Mhm.
if I were the client, if you're constantly stopping and typing and thinking for a minute and then going on to the next question, it just makes it flow so much more smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, those are the planned questions. Obviously, the value of this is to make sure that you've gone through every item on your checklist before we say, okay, I'm going to go do my work now. I'll follow up with you. It just reduces the chances that I have to bother you, follow up with you, ask you another question. And that means we're just delivering better client services when we're using a feature like this.
Yeah. What if we just jumped on this call and you hadn't really had much of a chance to plan it out in advance and you didn't have a set of planned questions?
Yeah, great question. So that's actually our live question feature that's down below. So it says suggested questions in gray here. It might be a little
Mhm.
hard to see, but that's following the live conversation. So some of the things I'll just quickly read here. So it was just asking, to what extent have you done a trademark search or registration for the Captain Bob name? And then, have you taken any steps to legally form the company yet? That would have been a good question too. Maybe you've tried to do something on your own or you had another attorney. That's relevant information to know when you're starting out with a new client. And then this was a question about the funds to purchase the boat. So, are there any personal funds or company funds that you're going to be using for that purchase? So, that's just, again, helping me brainstorm in the moment to pull out all the critical details.
Yeah, that's great. Looks good.
Yeah, so that's the facts tab. And then we've sort of changed, this is a new feature of how we represent it. We also have an issues tab. So as we were having this conversation, the product is looking for potential legal issues. And so it is covering all of the conversation. So let's just focus on the ones that are really specific to the hypothetical because it heard me talking about use of technology and things like that. So we'll focus on business entity formation. So this was one that it flagged. It mentions, it captured that this was in Gloucester for a charter fishing setup. So in the moment, I can either just look at the very short issue, I can tap into it to see a more detailed description of the issue. And then if I really want to dig in to get some legal content about it, we provide it at the attorney's fingertips. So you don't have to prompt it to do anything. You can just, have the conversation. And if the conversation focuses around, I think you had asked about, does it make sense to form an LLC? It says for Gloucester, Massachusetts, a startup, an LLC for liability protection. That's one of the benefits. And you're contributing an asset. Then it kind of, goes into some other requirements that we should consider when we're setting it up. And that includes a retail boat permit, a vessel registration, and a Gloucester Harbor use permit. So it's kind of digging further into, right? I could say that now to you in real time, like, leave time for all these additional administrative steps.
Right. And then you sound brilliant because you have all of this at your fingertips.
Exactly, exactly. Even if I've never formed a fishing business before, I have the resources to say, all right, we have to leave time. There's a lot of steps in order to make this happen.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
So that's the legal issues. Anything else you want to see around that, or should we kind of focus on what happens after the conversation?
Well, I guess the other thing is, I mean, as it's doing that, is it going to in any way kind of flag things perhaps that maybe you should have asked that didn't ask, or highlight issues that maybe you want to build out a little bit, flesh out a little bit more?
Yes. So the way that this actually works today is kind of by process of elimination. So if
Hmm.
you really want to focus what the product is listening for and analyzing, we can actually eliminate the issues that are not relevant. So it flagged, use of technology use in a conversation, client data handling, right? We can kind of narrow down what it's focused on. So then we're left with charter fishing licenses, having passengers on a boat in a charter. There's some legal considerations around that, adequacy of business charter coverage. So, this is like an insurance consideration. So, that was something we actually hadn't addressed. So, if I was looking through this list, I would say, have you taken any steps to identify an insurance company to cover your business? And, what steps do we need to take to make sure that that's in place?
Hmm. Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Are you good? Do you want any more details about my business?
I think we're good. I
Okay.
think we've covered it. But why don't I show you what happens after the conversation? Because I think this will also enhance your experience as a client of my law firm. Okay. So I will briefly stop sharing. I'm going to remove the bot from the conversation. This will trigger the notes to be generated, and it only takes about a minute or so, and then you will see the output from it. Okay. So this is for the benefit of the attorney. So these are the notes that are available immediately after our conversation. So the first thing you'll notice up here is that we generated a billing entry. This billing entry, because of our integrations with Clio and Smokeball, there's a separate tab for it, and you can actually push with one click, you can push that to your client matter. So it's a really nice seamless feature that attorneys really mention a lot as being a time saver. The first thing you see then below that is an area to put your own notes. That could be a variety of issues. We just felt that that was helpful. Then you see an overview of the conversation. All of this can be edited. So if you don't like exactly how it's represented, this is an opportunity to quickly make those adjustments. Another thing I wanted to highlight here, though, is that because our product was built by attorneys for attorneys, we actually pull out personal information before we analyze the conversation. So, what you're not going to see in these notes is something like, Bob said this and Hillary said that. We don't want a record that looks like that. And so,
Hmm.
this is providing the key facts without creating these statements that are specifically attributable to the individuals.
All right. And you're not recording the conversation.
Exactly. So that's a really important point to emphasize. So while we are able to provide these notes, it's because we're analyzing the conversation in sections, and those partial audio and transcript files, they are discarded at the end of the meeting. So what you really have is the attorney controlling the notes afterwards and having an email, a summary email.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's even like another level of customization and control here. So our default retention period is 60 days by default, but the attorney can go into their profile and adjust it as low as a day. So at the end of the conversation, here's the fact summary, here's a recap of the issues, then here's the follow-up tasks of what needs to happen. This can be easily exported to a PDF. It can be sent to our practice management tools like Clio and Smokeball with a click of a button. You control what happens to it. We don't want to be a document management system. We're not set up for that as well. And so this really allows the attorney to leverage AI in a way that they stay in the loop and control.
Have you looked at? I'm sure over time you've gotten a chance to look at a lot of these notes. How accurate are they? How good a job does it do?
Yes. So we've spent a lot of time working on getting it accurate, one, and two, making it so that it is the right amount of detail and presented in a way that's useful. So you'll notice up here that it's by bullet point. That's deliberate. So we originally used to summarize this as on a paragraph by paragraph basis.
Mhm.
But attorney said, it's just hard to read. There's a lot there. And so we really,
TLDR.
yeah, exactly. So we focused on, okay, we need the critical facts, we needed a bullet point list. And as models continue to get better, the underlying models, these notes get better as well too.
Hmm. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And you get the notes, you get the billing entry, and the action items.
Right. And your research, you have some preliminary research done as well with hyperlinks to the sources.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, the value of all of this, spend less time on the administrative work, free up time to do the higher value work that your client's really going to appreciate.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we've talked about this before, but
Mhm.
the one of the critical features of this is not, attempting to replace the work of the lawyer. It's really just trying to enhance and supplement the work of the lawyer and make the overall call more productive and come out with a better outcome, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up again. So that has never been our goal is to take the attorney out of the conversation. It's actually quite the opposite. It's supposed to empower the attorney and enhance the attorney's ability to have productive conversations. We all know from practicing law that you don't always take these conversations under perfect circumstances. You may have been up all night working on a memo or a brief. You may be distracted by, I don't know, something else that's going on. And so it just really helps you to stay focused and, think about all the relevant issues while the client's right in front of you. That's the most valuable time is when you can have that back and forth.
All right, so somebody's watching this right now and they're saying, "That's pretty cool. How do I get started on it?"
Absolutely. So you can go to our website at curious.ai and we offer a 2-week free trial. So you can sign up for free. And as part of that, you're also able to schedule a short onboarding with us. That onboarding process, it's not really from a technical standpoint. It takes just a matter of minutes to connect, to create an account, to connect to your calendar. That's how we integrate with your tech stack. And then once that takes place, really the onboarding session is focused on how do you make the most of your conversations. And so that is actually one of the newer features that we've been working on right now. So Curious as it's like as a product is, it's issue spotting, it's creating secure notes. But what we realized from our attorney users is that there's a lot of different types of scenarios where they're using it. And that could mean a new client conversation, an advisory conversation, a strategic conversation, even internal operations like a practice group meeting. And so, what we've done is created this idea of custom conversations where you can set up a new, like, configuration of Curious for those different scenarios. And so that's how you can plan questions ahead of time. You can also change like what types of issues are being spotted in the moment. And that allows this general purpose issue spotting tool to be very tailored to how you like to practice. So I didn't highlight that in the beginning of the conversation about the new features, but it is a really important step forward in making this a tool that can be leveraged by lots of different types of attorneys.
We're on Zoom right now. What if I'm a Teams person?
Yes. So you can absolutely use it in Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, and you have the same experience no matter what platform you're in.
All right. And how do you charge for this?
Yes. So it's a subscription model. And with an annual subscription, it's $99 per user per month. So it's a little bit more than a general purpose note taker. However, the value is so much greater, right? You're getting this additional privacy, security, and ethical consideration, and you're also getting those real time insights. So other tools are out there that provide that note taking support. Some of them even kind of transcribe or summarize in the conversation, but
Mhm.
we are taking it a step farther. We do real-time analysis about what's being said, about the key facts, about potential legal issues. We make all of that available after the conversation, and we're doing it all in a way that has been, thought through in terms of like, does this work within the rules of professional conduct? And we feel really good about that analysis. The state bar associations, as I mentioned, have embraced the tool. A legal malpractice insurance provider has embraced it, and so we feel really good about that validation of our approach.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious. I use AI note takers a lot, but clearly this goes beyond what those can
Mhm.
do in terms of, as you say, security and confidentiality and analysis and all of that sort of stuff. So, all right, anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
I think other than try the tool, let's have a discussion. We always love how attorneys in different practice areas pick it up. That actually inspires a lot of the features that we build. And so I think I've said this before, but I'll repeat it again. As AI tools are adopted and developed in legal tech, I don't think the decisions about what those tools become, I don't think they should be made by a small group of individuals. I think they should be shaped by attorneys from a variety of practice areas and experience levels. And so that's actually one of the reasons why we started the product council at Curious. A it's about 14 attorneys at this point, but it is representative of attorneys across the country. And they have provide really valuable feedback about what features do we build? How do we approach this feature in relation to, the privacy laws that are out there, the ethical considerations. And so I really encourage if someone wants to be a part of that, we are always excited to add new members. And you don't have to have a technical background in order to do that. I don't want people to think like I don't have anything to add to the conversation. We all do. We all consume so much technology these days that we all have the qualifications if we're willing to put in the time to contribute to the AI discussion in legal tech.
All right. Well, I'd love to talk more, but I've got a boat to go by, so I got to get
Yes.
going here. Get my
All right.
charter boat business going. So,
Sounds good.
yeah. Well, thanks a lot, and thanks to everybody for watching. You can find the full series of all our How It Works videos right up on YouTube. Just search for How It Works. They're also on the LawNext Legal Tech directory and on the Law Sites blog. So watch for them there. Thanks for watching today. And thanks, Hillary, to you.
Thank you, Bob. Always a pleasure.
All right. Bye.